Unless you have proper knowledge on nutrition, following 90% of YouTube advice, which by the way is probably better than doing nothing, will result in you getting fatter when you're trying to build a nice physique. And I know because I've been down the rabbit hole and we've been there, because there's not enough context behind what's being said. That's my message from there. There's not enough context behind just eating a calorie surplus. If anything, it breeds the mindset of more food, more muscle growth. Less food, I'll lose muscle. And that is not really the case. We need to zoom out and we need to gain perspective. And we're going to answer some quick questions for you on that. First question, why are people fat? Or fatter than they want to be. And it's because modern day food is made really fucking tasty. It's made very accessible, and it's a social thing that brings us together. So you have all the chips stacked against you when you are trying to get in shape. Now, why is true nutritional knowledge not common knowledge? And to be honest, boys, because there's a lot of fucking money to be made from people's pains, problems about their body. So the true secrets on dieting, if they were made common knowledge, what would happen to all that money in that big boy industry? It would all disappear, wouldn't it? Now, do I like that the world is like this? Yeah. Yes, I fucking do. And here's why. Because those with the great physique, they get to show the fucking world. An emphasis on the word show and not tell. Because remember, your body is your flesh business card. It's what will get you into different rooms, talking to different people and elevating your status as a whole. They bothered their arse to find the correct information, try it, fail on it, adapt it, try again, make a bit more progress, fail again, learn, adapt, rinse, repeat, over a period of years without really seeing massive results instantly. And that is why they deserve it. But going bigger than that, holding a great natural physique is the ultimate show of power. And why do I say that? Well, it's because those people have the strongest control over their minds. Like, do you understand the mental strength it takes that when you are dieting down to eat the prescribed meal plan and only that? Because it will make you feel like you've had enough fuel, but you are not satisfied. Because you know what satisfied has felt like when you fucking indulge in these nice foods, and it is not that. And it's the ability of saying, no, this is it now, and we move on. The mental strength it takes to say no to sugar and foods that were made for comfort and your fucking orgasmic taste buds in mind. But remember that, I'm not even speaking about sweets, chocolate, basic ass shit as that. I'm talking about like your nice savory meals that you go out with, like even your Nando's, which seems healthy, is just dense in calories because it's lapped up in oil and butter. And I'm not saying they're bad, I'm just saying it's very easy to overindulge in a high amount of calories. So holding a great physique it's actually more of a mental flex than it is a physical flex. But to be honest, you know, if we to really zoom out again, it just comes down to your own personal self-respect and your standards. Like, you're either a person that's like, oh, I'm a little bitch. I had to eat because I was feeling sad. And it's like, fucking stop being a pussy. Like, do you want to have a killer physique or not? If you're sad, you'll go and fucking walk it off, let the emotions flush out of you and continue doing what you're doing. So now we have some perspective. It's time for me to deliver on this title of this video. I understand it is a fucking big deliverable. Now, to make it more digestible, because unless this video was going to be 5 fucking hours long, we need to break it up into a series. So the part 1 of this series is really assessing your starting point. Because with nutrition, you cannot just fucking generalize knowledge to be issued out there. That's like a doctor getting a patient and just generalizing one tablet, which they probably fucking do. But like, what you need to do is the doctor should understand the pain or the illness the person has and prescribe the direct medicine off the back of that. The same when it comes to nutrition. A proper fitness professional will look at your current body composition, the illness, just joking, and then he will be able to give you practical steps of what to do next and the output and what is needed from that. So we're going to break the video down into 2 parts. So let's say educational and then the actual practical implementation. So I guess you could say at this point in the video, this is where you get your fucking notebook and pen and you actually get ready to extract the value that I'm going to give to you. So when we go into the education part, your physique will more than likely fall into one of 3 categories. You'll either be skinny and lean, skinny and soft, most people, or big and soft, or like excessively fat. 4 categories then, but we'll go with 3 for now. So, why this is important? We need to understand how much body fat you're carrying, and this will then determine some very critical and important factors. The first one would be training. If you are fatter, you are not as responsive as someone that is leaner to specific training stimulus and dosage and work on the given muscle. So we need to take that into consideration. More importantly, nutrition. The leaner you are, the more responsive you are to insulin. So how you use carbs versus someone that is a lot fatter will use them will be completely different. Someone that is leaner will soak them up, use them for performance, which will then increase their gym, which will then increase their muscle build, and then increase how they look. Whether someone is fatter, then they will use those carbs and their body's already used to storing excess calories and fat because they're already fat. So then they won't get the same effect and it will not be used in the same way. So getting ourselves down to an 8 to 12% body fat range before we start will give you the best chance. It will build your house from the most solid of foundation because you'll then be able to do it for a prolonged period of time. You're 8 to 10% body fat when you enter the gaining phase, the building phase, not the fucking dirty bulk phase. The gaining phase, it will last for a longer period of time. And we know that it would be smarter if we could build momentum week, continue to build tissue, continue to get stronger in the gym without having to be like, oh, fuck's sake, I fucked it, I'm too fat, I've overspilled. The sway of how my body is now utilizing the food is not really in my favor and I need to cut down. You want to give yourself the longest window that you can to make the most amount of gains while you're already in that state of working forward. And I think what is really critical to mention is when you are in a gaining phase, and we'll go into this like in later videos, you only need a slight surplus because the slight surplus through probably predominantly carbohydrates will then increase the gym floor performance, and it's the gym floor performance which will then improve on the load, improve on the reps week by week, and that is what will build actual physical muscle tissue. It's not the calorie surplus that builds muscle, it's the calorie surplus aids in a support tool of gym floor performance and also recovery that then comes off the back of it. So we've gained a little bit of practical understanding. Now we're going to get into the actual steps and set you up as to how that would look and feel like. So we've got our 3 physiques here. We've got someone that's skinny and lean, skinny-ish and softish, and then someone that is like bulky and soft-ish. And obviously this is me taking up 3 different standpoints. So I obviously already know the scale weight. So you would just need the photo of you and your scale weight. So you would weigh yourself in. And then we're going to go into the setup now. Okay, the first setup we're going to do is for this guy here. So what should he do next? What would we prescribe to him? Well, we can assess his body composition. We know his scale weight is 88 kilograms. And we need to look, okay, how much body fat is he carrying? And what we do is we compare him to these pre-recorded guys we've got here. Now, he's not as tight as this guy. There was no ledges, no intercostal or ribs poking through. But he did have a bit of ab structure, but if you were being like, let's be conservative, which you always should when we do this, he's probably closer towards 20% body fat, realistically. Maybe, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll say it's 18% body fat. So we've got his scale weight, and we've got his body fat percentage. So now what we can do is enter that data, and it's going to give us what his lean tissue mass, and this is important because then we actually know how much muscle mass we're carrying. We know his resting metabolic rate, how many calories he'd need just for normal daily function. And then obviously you're going to know your activity. I know his. He was just an average guy, trains 3 to 5 days a week, works behind a desk, doesn't really move that much. We've got then his overall maintenance target. Now at this point, when you're closer to 20% body fat, you can be a little bit more aggressive with a deficit, but you don't want to be too aggressive. You can always pull food down as the weeks go without having to like make the deficit so drastic. So It's the same as like a haircut. You don't want to fucking just zoop, take it all off. You can't put it back on, can you? But you can always just keep chipping away a little bit more. So at this point, we're not going to go for 1% drop. We're going to go around a 0.7. And this is going to pull this guy down to a calorie target of 2,300 calories. And this, in the beginning, because he's carrying a lot of fluid, he will still drop. Roughly, for him, you want to expect him to see around about a kg drop per week. And this will then give us our new calorie target of what he wants to consume. His protein, this is relative to this figure here. You're getting this figure here and times it by 2.4, or pretty much his body weight in pounds, it would be around that as well. Fats. Now, fats, we want them at a healthy level, but we don't need too much. So 25% of this number is what we're given, and then the rest is given to carbs, so we can still drive performance in the gym. The next thing you need to work out is, okay, what's his timeline down to the goal weight? Now, obviously, this is me, and I've ran this split test, so I know the goal weight that I got to was 75 kg, and the time frame was 13 weeks. But how you would get around that yourself, mapping it out from the start, would be you'd find out your lean tissue mass, add 8%, 10% to that figure. It will give you a new scale weight. You've got your old scale weight, new scale weight, and you want to drop around 1% of the scale per week. In the beginning, it'll be a bit more, maybe 1.5, because you're dropping fluid, muscle glycogen, etc., etc. And then after that, it will run pretty much the same as 1%. And then you'll work out the weeks and what your target is added from there. And then as you go through this dieting phase, try to keep food as high as you can and just implement low-level cardio. Start with 20 minutes a day, something that's not going to accumulate fatigue. So don't go out running too much because joints are then taking impact. You want something where it's not going to accumulate as much fatigue. And then keep your steps, usual output, about 10k a day will serve the purpose. And then that is how this guy would set himself up really to get down to 8 to 10% body fat. He'd have already got a fair amount of tissue, and you will still build some tissue within that phase as long as numbers are progressing in the gym. And I very much doubt that numbers would fall within the first 6 weeks of that initial diet phase. So that's where we'd go for our guy that is a bit fatter. The next question is, where do we put our guy that is skinnier but fatter? So if we remember this guy here, he is, he's leaner than this guy, but he's also a bit smaller. So he puts us in a weird space. And you'll get a lot of guys like this where they're not really fat. They might even be leaner than this guy, but they also don't got that much muscle either. So it puts you in like a bit of a predicament of, what do you do with this person? And you may fall into this category. And I'm going to tell you now how we go to skin the cat. So let's say this guy in this photo was 80 kg and he's 16% body fat. You're 16, 17% body fat. Now, you're in that space where you haven't got that much to pull from because you're skinnier, but you also are carrying some body fat, which would need to be, know enough what we know, 8 to 10% body fat for starting our house from. We need to be very smart about this. And what I would do in this incident, what I have done with clients in the past is, you find out their output, so scale, actual lean tissue, RMR, their activity. Okay, this is their maintenance. Now, you want to keep their calories a little bit higher than the other people, especially than this guy. You actually want to put them just below maintenance, maybe even around this point here. Because this will allow for the first phase of this, it would still be a diet down phase. It will allow him plenty of food, and plenty of food will allow to drive plenty of performance. So it will really fucking get the muscle building in that phase. Now, if you've not trained for a while, you're also going to see some nice response. And if your training's been a bit shabby, you're also going to see yourself blow up. And I've seen this with clients, just putting them on a proper prescribed plan, teaching them tempo, exercise execution, and solid range of motion, that they see some fucking good gains off that. So you're going to want to run it, in this case, for around about 6 weeks with this macro split. But then as you get towards the halfway and a little bit further, you're then going to want to pull calories further into the same phase that the fatter guy is starting in. And that way you will then extract the rest of the body fat. And they make for the nicest turnaround in results and in actual shape. So if you do fall into that category, you're in you're not in a horrendous space, to be honest, but it's knowing the knowledge of what to do in that given space. So to summarise something that shouldn't really be summarised, you would essentially sit below maintenance, drive performance for a prolonged period of time, and then slowly pull, and then put, because that will gradually pull off the body fat, and then you can go aggressive for the last 4 weeks or so. Because again, remember, this person was already relatively lean. Pulling them down to 8 to 10% won't be that much of an issue, but you don't want to pull them down and they're skinny. Speaking of skinny, what will we do for our fucking weasel dick, skinny, pissant guy? Well, we can see his physique. He is already 8 to 10% body fat, like no fucking stress at all. So then it makes the question, he's got his house ready to be built on, his foundation is solid, he's just fucking skinny as fuck. So what is our approach gonna be for this guy? People will go bulk, bulk, bulk. But I'm gonna show you how we're gonna tackle this fish. So we've assessed his physique. We understand he's in between these two people. He's maybe not as clear-cut as this guy, but he's leaning at 10. So we say he's at 8. We know his scale weight, and he's sat at 65. His lean tissue then is, we'll round that up to 60 for easy numbers. RMR, and now we know his activity. So his maintenance target is 2,500 calories. Now, we do agree he needs to go into a surplus, but remember I said it is just a gradual surplus that is going to build the tissue. And initially, I would start on your maintenance target. I would train, and I would progress the numbers in the gym. Now, there will become a point where that amount of fuel is not enough to drive muscle building, and you will essentially either the numbers will stop increasing in the gym, or the scale weight will not be trending up. Now, we do want it to trend up, but how much? Well, roughly, we want to look bigger when we're in a building phase. In a diet phase, you get to see things week by week by week. It's fucking amazing. But in a building phase, it's going to be more on a month-by-month basis. You're going to look to compare visual photos and also see how the scale weight is. And as a rule of thumb, to know that we're not getting fatter, you want to be adding around 1% of the scale weight per month, where it was a drop per week in body fat. If you're actually trying to add physical tissue to your physique, it's going to look around 1% per month. So for this guy, he's looking at just over half a kilo per month. Now, to put him at a 1% gain per month, the increase in deficit here is around about 700 calories. But I would not just put him straight into that point of 700 calories. As I said, we would start at maintenance. And then every time the scale weight starts to plateau, numbers start to plateau, I would increase just an extra 200 to 250 calories. Again, it's like the haircut analogy. I'd take a little bit off. I'd just add a little bit more food so we don't overspill. Because, again, it is the calorie surplus that is going to enable driven performance in the gym. It's not the calorie surplus that needs to be so drastic that he bulks up. So you are going to need to be conservative, but you need to get your mindset in the right space that this is a longer process. This does take a bit of time. You're not going to see the changes week by week. But how is the logbook looking? Are the numbers progressing in the gym? If they're not, okay, maybe I need some more fuel. And we then allocate that fuel in the form of carbohydrates, which then drive performance in the gym. We'll go through what types of macronutrients to eat and specific foods to eat in later videos. But that is the way I'd approach it. And I would creep my way up to this given target. And I really would not rush this process, because you've got your house in a good position. You could bulk for a long period of time, and as long as we're getting stronger with good execution, good range of motion, good tempo on our movements, you will grow tissue. That's just the way the body responds. Stress, stimulus, adapt, recover, build. And that is the way I would roll through this. Now, if you found this useful and you want this little calorie calculator, just drop me a message on IG. And if you want to work together or want me to do all this fucking for you, which, to be fair, I get someone to do it for me because coaching is fucking decent. Learn from people that are better than you. Then there'll be links in the description for sure. But so this is part one of the series, the setup and getting you in a good position and know what to do next. Look forward to tomorrow's video where we'll dive in a little bit deeper into the next topic.